everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. The title of my presentation will be on remote online teaching and learning, reflections and lessons learned, a bit different from all of the other presentations that I've heard. So mine is on the social sciences, but I'm glad to share on the findings and also the information that I've gotten. Okay, so to begin with, I'll share these infographics with all of you. So my presentation will be based on three things: the experiences that students and teachers have gone through over the past 2 years since the pandemic, and then I'll be talking a little bit about the reflections that we made based on these experiences, and share with all of you the lessons that we learned. And these are lessons that we hope that we can carry forward and improve on our teaching and learning. So to give you a brief information on the COVID situation in Malaysia, back in the year 2020, which was 2 years ago, early 2020, Malaysia had to carry out several mitigation strategies to overcome the pandemic. So this means that it led to the closure of schools and other educational institutions like universities, colleges, and this also brought upon changes in how the schools operated, and new detailed SOPs or standard operating procedures had to be carried out. This also means that more emphasis was given to the upgrading the infrastructure, and as you can see, a lot of allocation was given for maintenance and for also upgrading the virtual platforms and digital tools. This was aimed at helping our students, especially those with slow or zero internet service. And obviously back then there was a great digital divide between schools in the urban areas and also in the rural areas. So having said that, teachers had to undergo a lot of training, and they had to go immediate training actually to familiarize themselves with online teaching and learning, and having to go through learning and relearning that involved content, changing the content, changing or adapting the teaching materials, looking at the pedagogical methods that worked, learning about basic technological tools. So it wasn't easy, but everybody had to go through it. And on the right side of the infographic, you'll see that one of the initiatives that was carried out, of course, was the National Digital Education Initiative, which worked, and we are still continuing with it. Okay, so this is another infographic. As you can see on the left side is actually the strategies that were carried out, and some of the initiatives in making sure that our teachers are empowered and given the relevant training. And on the right side, you'll see some newspaper clippings or reports concerning what went on during the 2 years. And recently, the movement control order, which was taken or lifted a year ago. Now we're back to normal school routine, and in the future we'll be going full-fledged 100% face-to-face again. So this is good news, but there are a lot of lessons to be learned from the past 2 years that we went through COVID-19 and having to teach virtually or remotely. So some of the looking back against this backdrop, what was evident is that in tertiary education across all, not just in Malaysia, but also across the world, lectures and tutorials have had to be moved online swiftly, and ongoing lab research put on a halt or delayed, and even in some cases, especially in universities in Malaysia, enrollment of new students had to be deferred or delayed. So the outbreak has yet to subside, and although the number of cases have gone down a lot, and we're slowly easing on the restrictions, many Malaysians, especially the students and the teachers, educators in general, are still in the process of adapting the next normal. So the challenges that are still pending or outstanding, the outstanding issues, are three things. A challenge for teachers to teach online, that's one thing. And lack of internet access. Yes, still we're having problems with internet connectivity. And this is an issue that is always being talked about. And of course, difficulty separating parenting, business roles when you're working from home. Some of our government servants are still working from home, and they're still trying to find the balance, the right balance. Of course, when you're doing business from home, it's also the same thing. So I did a little bit of research or a small survey, actually asking my teacher trainees and also teachers who are in schools who have undergone this 2-year experience of having to teach online. And the first thing that I asked them was, is your institution planning on delivering remote teaching in the future? And majority of them said yes. And despite finding it difficult to engage students online and making sure that students attend classes virtually, teachers are still hopeful that remote teaching will still be carried out, and they do not disregard the fact that hybrid teaching or hybrid learning will still be going on. So which means that most of our teachers are adapting or in the process of adapting, moving on and looking forward to how best they can actually make of both worlds, face-to-face teaching and also online teaching or virtual teaching if there is a need for it. So another lesson, the lesson learned, one of the lessons learned is to make use of the tools and make sure that they are accessible to all. So it's also important to use the right kind of tools and to create accessible content and to ensure that it can be used by all participants. And a lot of it has to do with internet, connectivity issues, as well as digital literacy as well. And if you look at the pie chart here, you'll see that, Google Meet is one of the most, used tool for preparation and delivery of teaching. And this is because most teachers, all teachers, especially in schools in Malaysia, are using Google Meet under the initiative of the Ministry of Education. So Malaysian teachers and students have recorded, the most number of logins to Google Meet and, Google Classroom, using Google Classroom as a platform for teaching and learning. The other platform would be Zoom, the second most popular tool to be used, and this is generally being used at university, and most universities pay for the premium version to get high quality audio and high quality video and the added features as well. Okay, so please let me know if I have exceeded the time. I do not want to exceed time, so just give me a tinker if I exceed the time. So another lesson learned, which I think is quite important, is the need to experiment on various online sources and trying out multiple resources actually. This is important to keep the students engaged and motivated, and the whole idea is to make it fun and interesting while students practice online learning. And especially when you do online teaching and learning, it's very important to keep everyone in contact. So interaction is important and engagement is highly important as well. And according to the input or the feedback that we got, some of the online resources that are helpful are definitely tools like Padlet, Live Worksheet, Canva, Kahoot, quizzes, even WhatsApp, are considered as useful tools. So the takeaway point here is that do not let a lack of familiarity with the tools be a barrier for us trying out something new. There's always a lot of things to discover in the virtual world. So it's a matter of investing your time and doing your own research and how best you can cater your activities, according to your students' needs. That's the important thing. Oops, sorry. Okay, so the other lesson learned during the whole experience and when we reflected on it is, of course, to check on students' status. The reason I say this is because with the online teaching and learning, it means, there has been an increase in the use or the surge in the use of telecommunications. Meaning to say that students, spend more time facing screens, teachers as well, facing their smartphones, and a lot of studies have, been published saying that, this has caused what is called Zoom fatigue, feeling of exhaustion, burnout, stressed, and feeling isolated. So it's important for us to check every now and then, how our students, coping with online learning. And from the survey that was carried out, you could see that, almost 50% says, it's a mixture, but most of them are doing well, which is good. But, if you look at 18.2% says, most students are really struggling. So probably this is due to not being able to manage their time properly, having to learn in isolation, not having your friends, with you face to face, in a physical setting. So this, adds to the stress levels. So this is one of the things that we reflected, and we felt that, it's important to check our students' mental status and their mental health as well. So I've got some tips. These tips are actually from the teachers, from the teacher trainees who went, to schools and having the experience of teaching online for the past 2 years. So these are just suggestions, advice on how to successfully shift, from class-based teaching to online teaching. So if you look at the underlying phrases here, so number one is to be prepared. Be prepared to try out everything that is possible. More importantly is to make the lesson simple and realistic. I don't think we can be too ambitious when it comes to teaching, and our objectives definitely have to change. Know the fact that, every student is different, so they're learning to adapt as well as you learning to adapt as well. So it's important to enjoy the process. As teachers, we must not lose the passion, and you have to prepare yourself mentally as well, not just the students. One of the key things that I felt was important is to always be empathetic, to know what it feels like to be in their shoes, not having 100% connectivity, getting kicked from the Zoom room. So these are the things that we have to be very aware about. So I'd like to conclude, these are some of the other tips from the teachers as well. Again, the key word seems to be prepare well and be hopeful, and always remind yourself that, it's okay not having to figure out everything all at once. Sometimes, technology backfires and you find yourself always having to troubleshoot. That's okay. It's a process whereby everybody goes through it. But what's important is that, although we're facing a very challenging time these days, we also need to look at the blessings and opportunities that has presented, themselves. And finding the right balance is always important. What kind of balance are we talking about? Balance between teaching, prioritizing, students' needs, use of technology is also important. And we must never forget that, especially in this day and age, having gone through, COVID-19 for the past 2 years, it's very, very important to have strong relationships between students and teachers, students and families, teachers and families as well. And you must make it, part of the core practice. So it's no longer, having segmented or compartmentalized kind of responsibility. You also have to have support from, parents, teachers, administrators, policymakers, and you know, that way we could actually move forward and make, you know, our teaching and learning better. So many thanks, you know, for your time, and thank you for listening to my presentation. That is all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very good presentation.